Now, our top story, a Russian drone strike has killed 9 civilians in Ukraine's northern Sumy region on Saturday, targeting a bus and injuring 4 others. Ukrainian authorities called it a cynical attack, adding to the toll of a war that has dragged on for over 3 years. The deadly strike came just a day after Ukraine and Russia held their first direct peace talks in Istanbul since 2022. Despite high anticipation, the 90-minute meeting ended with little progress. The only firm outcome, a large-scale prisoner exchange with 1,000 detainees to be swapped on each side. Kiev pushed hard for an unconditional ceasefire, while Moscow stuck to hardline demands, including calls for Ukraine to cede more territory. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky accused Russian President Vladimir Putin of being afraid to attend the talks and warned that the Kremlin was not serious about peace. French President Emmanuel Macron said Europe and the US are preparing new sanctions in case Russia continues to reject a ceasefire. Let's listen in to all he had to say.
Aujourd'hui, ce qui reste d'actualité, c'est la seule proposition concrète qui a été faite, celle d'un cessez-le-feu inconditionnel. Nous continuons par ailleurs de préparer des nouvelles sanctions en coordination avec les États-Unis d'Amérique, au cas où ceux-ci ne trouveraient pas une réponse positive. Le président Trump compte, mais c'est sa responsabilité, il lui revient de le confirmer, de le dire, mais organiser des échanges dans les prochaines heures ou les prochains jours avec la partie russe pour pouvoir clarifier ce qui s'est passé et essayer d'avancer. Par ailleurs, la partie russe a promis un retour à la partie ukrainienne sur les propositions qui avaient été faites lors des échanges d'hier et de ce matin. C'est qu'on ne fasse pas croire à qui que ce soit qu'on pourrait reprendre les négociations d'Istanbul là où elles s'étaient arrêtées au printemps 2022. Parce qu'il y a eu entre-temps 3 ans d'une guerre terrible à laquelle les Ukrainiens ont résisté avec beaucoup de courage, un engagement de tous les Européens. Donc on ne fera croire à personne qu'on peut revenir au point où on en était.
Meanwhile, pressure mounts for direct engagement between Trump and Putin, with both sides suggesting a leader-level meeting is essential to breaking the deadlock. But with fresh attacks and zero movement on core issues, the path to peace still looks distant. We're now joined by our guest today to discuss this in further detail, Andrea Lucidi, who is a war reporter and is joining us from Moscow live. Thank you very much, Andrea, for joining us. This attack on a civilian bus by the Russian military comes just hours after peace talks closed in Istanbul. Was this Russia's opening statement to show their stance on the war currently?
Well, you know, such attacks are very common from both sides since the beginning of the war, and it's really complicated now to understand the dynamic of such attacks because very often it's possible that the beers of anti-air weapons will fall from the sky and hit some civilians target or civilians building. It's very common, unfortunately, in this war. Regarding the Istanbul negotiation, I think that we reach as a world a big objective, a big deal, because this is very important that the two sides can speak each other, because since 3 years nobody wanted to speak between Russia and Ukraine, and now we saw that the two official delegations meet each other in Istanbul and start a first step for future negotiation. Both sides yesterday declared that the first round of the meeting of the negotiation was ended, but it can be possible to meet, to organize a new meeting in Istanbul. And the Russian top negotiator, the head of the Russian delegation, say to the journalists that the Ukrainian conflict can have an end in weeks. So this is very, very important. Also, the American position, and this is important because Donald Trump agreed to meet personally Vladimir Putin in high-level meeting, and also the spokesman of the Kremlin, Dmitry Peskov, declared that such meeting is not only important, but it's necessary in this moment. So, and the biggest result of the yesterday negotiation in Istanbul, in my opinion, is the prisoner exchange. 1,000 prisoners of war from both sides will be exchanged very, very soon. This is a big amount. I don't remember such exchange of this amount of prisoners of war in the last 3 years. This can be not only a result, but also a message for both sides and both peoples, both population, Russian and Ukrainian. It's possible that I think it's real to think that the war can end in weeks if all this way will be followed
Andrea,
like authorities planned.
critics would say, to some of your points there, that Russia has been the one to deny the 30-day ceasefire proposal. Vladimir Putin declined. He didn't turn up to the talks. Zelensky invited him, and now Russia has bombed a civilian bus. Why should anyone believe that Russia is serious about peace when it strikes civilians on the very same day as peace talks begin?
Well, you know, the purpose for the negotiation came from Vladimir Putin directly, and he declared that was available to speak also with Zelensky, and this is a big message because it's common in the Russian media to see declaration also from the authorities about the strange position of Zelensky, because for someone, Zelensky is not the legitimate president of Ukraine because his mandate was expired last May. So if Vladimir Putin,
but Andrea, his country is his country is at war. I'm just saying that under martial law, elections tend to not take place, and Ukraine is currently under martial law, meaning that there is no elections held in the country. Just saying that's the information.
But for someone in big position in Russia, Zelensky is not more a legitimate president. And if Vladimir Putin agreed to speak with him, this is it's a meaning that for Vladimir Putin, Zelensky is the president, the leader of Ukraine. So also this is a very important message. About the attack against civilians and cities in Ukraine, this is the war. This can happen, and it's not. I'm not sure about the dynamic of the attack that you quote right now, because it's very common that the beers from anti-aircraft system, anti-aircraft weapons can fall above peoples and civilians. Sumy is a city very close to the front line, and it's not the first time that Russian weapons hit the city, but not against civilians, but against, this is the Russian declaration and the declaration of the Ministry of Defense of Moscow, against the military-industrial complex of Ukraine that now operated also under civilians building for build drones and light weapons.
Yes, some would say the timing of this is coincidental, but others would say it could be deliberate, maybe possibly a signal to Kiev that peace will only come on Russia's terms. What do you say to that?
From the negotiation out, it's very clear that the Russian side does not want to reconsider its demands about, for example, the claimed territory, about the request to Ukraine to stay neutral in the geopolitical view in Europe. So non-NATO for Ukraine, maybe yes to European Union, and also the denazification. That's mean the completely disassembled of any extreme or right wings connected regiment or battalion.
I do apologise,
in
Andrea,
Ukraine.
but I believe we have run out of time. Thank you very much for joining us on the programme.